The rape and murder of Jyoti Singh in December 2012 served as a catalyst for youth-led movements for gender equality and the enactment of the Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013. By virtue of the fact that they belong to a certain age group, the youth of India share common interests and aspirations, unique to their generation. Based on its work and experience with schools and colleges over the last 20 years, WISCOMP believes that the youth, who constitute 65% of the Indian population, are best positioned to influence public discourse and behavior on gender identity and violence.
WISCOMP is a non-sectarian, non-denominational initiative that works at the intersection of security, peace and gender, and is supported by the Foundation of Universal Responsibility of His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
The project, through its capacity building workshops and dialogues, training and curriculum package, and Sahas Awards, aimed to increase awareness of the widespread nature of gender-based violence within India, to have a long-lasting impact on boys and girls, women and men, in order to create a gradual change in beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, and cultural norms, and to help men and boys understand that gender-based violence is morally and legally wrong, and that violence against women has a detrimental impact on all aspects of society.
My suggestion is that in order to ensure that legal reforms make societal impact, you have to have a parallel program of education of not only boys but girls. It's the mother who teaches the boy what his behavior ought to be. It is without that. I said this to Amir Khan. He wanted me to go on the program, the Satyamev Jayate, to talk about the Vulnerable Witness Courtroom Initiative. So I had requested him. I said, I can cry hoarse in my judgments that this is what is needed. Society won't listen. But if you say this is how you conduct women, if Amitabh Bachchan were to say it, if Sachin Tendulkar were to say it, if our cricket captains would say it, then children would listen. That this is how you treat women. This is the acceptable manner. This is what you don't do. So unless this happens, we will not see any kind of societal change.
project that has looked at gender-based violence has moved away from the discourse on victimhood towards acknowledging the agency of men and women both, and transgender.
2, 3, 4.
Combat stereotypes, combat misperceptions, combat the patriarchy that so often sort of forms the basis for then what escalates into gender-based violence and sexual violence.
और दोस्तों, मेरा ये मानना है कि इस आंदोलन को बहुत आगे बढ़ने की जरूरत है और ये बहुत जरूरी है कि हम अपने स्कूलों में लड़के लड़कियों के साथ, दोनों के साथ काम करें।
आजकल इतना सारा बातचीत हो रहा है कि मर्द है औरत है, मर्द है औरत है, मर्दानगी दिखा रहे हैं मर्दानगी। तो मैंने सोचा कि भला मर्दानगी होती क्या है जिस चीज को नापा ना जा सके, जो मेजरेबल नहीं है, वो एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता, ऐसा फिजिक्स कहता है ना? तो जो चीज मेजरेबल नहीं है वो तो एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करता। तो मैंने सोचा कि मर्दानगी भला है क्या, उसे नापना चाहिए।
वायलेंस का बहुत ही क्रिटिकल साइड हमारी फैमिली होती है, तो हमने उसी थीम को ध्यान में रखते हुए अपने कैंपेन की थीम रखी है साउंड ऑफ साइलेंस, which is basically addressing the culture of silence prevalent within our family.
Violence. So violence is not just as I said, physical in nature. There is also a psychological and emotional aspect of violence which precedes the act of violence and which carries on further, and it manifests itself in very many other ways. So threat of violence. So the fear that I might be harmed, that in itself constitutes violence.
And not to say that we are substituting history by her story, but to have her story also written along with his story.
Yes, Mr. Viren in our group is blessed with a little daughter, and he shared with us that he likes babysitting. So that is generally not typical of the gender.
The first thing that we have a newly married bride, so she came up with this.
Congratulations.
The first thing she said was that after marriage, the groom should come to live in the bride's house with her family, and which means that we are talking about a role reversal in terms of all kind of marriage customs, even
The moment you stand up or you stick your neck out for someone who can't stand up for themselves, or give voice to the voiceless and encourage your students to do that, every little act has the ability to impact the universe. And millions such acts will bring about a perspectival shift, a quantum shift, and suddenly there will be a new paradigm.
So, I've been involved with the Sahasa walks, and through that lens I was able to look at WISCOMP's work.
Sure.
I think the uniqueness is in the fact that you're not trying to work through a confrontational approach, but the hope is that we can possibly find, without compromising on the questions of fundamental rights and dignity, a possibility of constructive working together.
Guests on the show today, 3 recipients of the Sahas Awards that acknowledge and applaud the courage of extraordinary women, men and transgender persons. These icons of courage spoke out, stepped forward and took action in their homes, in their neighborhoods, in their communities, in college campuses, workplaces and social gatherings to counter gender-based violence. They also survived gender-based violence themselves and worked to end it as well.
On that time, so we don't have such much of supports. Till now, we don't have enough. But yes, the people like you, the people like media, the people like Sahas Awards has given us the power to work together for gender equality.
So I think the Sahas Awards have been fairly remarkable in terms of, I would say, the most critical thing is that it's been able to reach out to a very large number of people who have faced gender-based violence. Such awards do multiple things. To start with, it helps a lot of people to start reflecting, trying to even understand what's happening in their lives. How are they facing gender-based violence? So starting from making a lot of people aware, to actually making people aspire to become part of a larger network, to get recognition for the courage that they've shown, and hopefully become then in some ways beacons of hope for others, is what such awards do, and this award has done that fairly well. So it reached out to a lot of people. I think the entries that came in were absolutely remarkable in terms of the stories that we heard, and I hope that it has inspired many others to not continue facing gender-based violence and challenge it.
As a man, I am pleased to know that WISCOMP sees the problem of gender-based violence and injustice as being as much an issue for men as it is for women. WISCOMP understands that change in the perceptions of men and boys is a critical and necessary part of the solution to ending gender-based violence everywhere. You understand that men must stand side by side with women in publicly condemning gender-based violence.
बोलो क्या तुम चाहती? बोलो क्या तुम चाहती? बोलो कौन है साथी? कहो कौन है प्यारा? है कौन सहारा? देगी हिम्मत कौन? देगी इज्जत कौन? देगी हस्ती कौन? देगी मस्ती कौन?
Those who were there at the workshop, so I was there at the workshop, Ms. Deepti Nath, who was one of the facilitators at the workshop. There were others. So we did our bit, and there were, say, 100 people in each of the workshops, or 150. So together we spent very fruitful few hours listening to each other and learning from each other. But can that experience be taken further and transmitted to a wider audience? And I think it's possible, and it's very important that we do this, but it would be useful to have some kind of a base point from where to begin. So I think in that sense the curriculum package will be very, very useful. I describe it often when friends ask me, so how did the project go? I always say it felt like being part of a celebration, being part of something which you are celebrating. And what is it that I think the project tried to celebrate was that human beings, when they recognize that something is not going good, they actually can come together, take that first step, other people get attracted towards that first step, and then there's a ripple, and hopefully a huge tidal wave is waiting to happen. A tidal wave that will address the question of gender-based violence, not in an adversarial fashion. That's what I really liked about the project and the vision behind it. And that vision, I suppose, comes from WISCOMP's vision of seeing conflicts not as irresolvable or irreconcilable. I think that's a better word. Not seeing it as a us versus them kind of a thing. That I don't think helps. It was the understanding at one point in time, but WISCOMP and the Sahas Award has actually moved away from that. And I think that's really been one of the best things. So movement from victimhood to agency. Telling men, women and trans people that yes, you can do it. And we have done it. Come and see others who've done it. Why don't you join that effort? So it's very empowering, it's ennobling, and it fills you with hope.
So now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need of my care. 'Cause I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me.